Someone you love is gone. The body is there, but the person is not, and you do not know what to do with your hands. That feeling, that specific, helpless, where do I put myself feeling, is one of the oldest feelings a human being can have. But what you probably do not realize is that the rituals surrounding you in that moment, the flowers, the silence, the gathering, the grave, they did not come from religion. They did not come from culture. They came from something far older, something buried in the biology of your grieving brain that was already ancient long before the first God was ever named. What ancient humans actually did when someone died is not what you have been told, and understanding it will change the way you think about death, about loss, and about what it means to be the kind of creature that buries its dead at all. Start with a question. Why do you bury the dead? Not why does your culture bury the dead? Why do you, as a member of the human species, feel that something must be done with a body, that it cannot simply be left, that it must be placed, wrapped, marked, remembered? Other animals do not feel this way. A wolf pack moves on. A crow may linger briefly near a fallen mate, but it does not return. It does not build a cairn of stones. It does not come back a year later to stand in silence. You do. Your ancestors did. And the evidence suggests they were doing it far longer ago than anyone once believed. In 2023, a discovery in a South African cave system called Rising Star shook the field of paleoanthropology. Researchers led by Lee Berger announced that they had found evidence of intentional burial by Homo naledi, a small-brained hominin that walked the earth roughly 300,000 years ago. Not a modern human, not even a direct ancestor, a cousin species with a brain roughly a third of yours. The burials were deliberate. The bodies had been placed in specific positions in a deep, difficult-to-reach cave. There were what appeared to be engravings on the cave walls nearby. This was not accidental. Something that was not yet fully human had decided that death required a response. That response is older than your species. But here is what the textbooks have not yet caught up to. The earliest ritual treatment of the dead was not about the afterlife. It was not about religion. It was about the living. It was about what happens inside a social creature's nervous system when someone it was bonded to disappears from the world. Your brain, specifically the part of it that tracks other people, cannot easily process permanent absence. The psychologist John Bowlby, who spent decades studying attachment and loss, described what happens in the grieving human nervous system as a form of biological protest. Your attachment system, the same system that fires when a mother hears her infant cry, treats death as a separation. It waits for return. It scans for the lost person. It calls out. For a social species that evolved in small, tight-knit bands where cooperation meant survival, the sudden removal of a group member was a crisis that demanded action. Doing something with the body was in part a way of giving that protest somewhere to go. Your ancestors understood this without language. They knew that the group needed to act together, and so they did. In the oldest known burial sites, what researchers consistently find is not one body. They find groups. They find tools placed beside the dead. They find ochre, the red iron pigment that early humans applied to everything that mattered to them, smeared across the bodies of those they had lost. At School Cave in Israel, dated to roughly 120,000 years ago, Homo sapiens were buried with animal bones, possibly offerings, laid deliberately across the body. At Sungir in Russia, two children buried head-to-head roughly 34,000 years ago wore thousands of ivory beads that would have taken an estimated 10,000 hours to make. 10,000 hours of labor for the dead. Think about that. 10,000 hours of work offered to people who could no longer receive it. This is not primitive behavior. This is the most human thing you can imagine. The insistence that a person who is gone still deserves something from the living, that their absence creates an obligation. Where does that instinct come from? The anthropologist Thomas Wynne and cognitive scientist Frederick Coolidge have argued that the capacity for this kind of ritual thinking required a specific upgrade in working memory, the ability to hold a concept across time, to imagine a past person, to project them into a future, to understand that something should be done now that honors what was. This cognitive leap, they suggest, is directly linked to the same mental architecture that allows you to plan, to tell stories, and to understand that you yourself will one day die. Grief and self-awareness evolved together. They are the same feature of the same mind. You grieve because you can imagine. You can imagine because you evolved a brain that simulates other minds, and the moment you could simulate another mind, you could lose it. The rituals that ancient humans built around death were technologies of the mind, not superstitions, not confusion, technologies for moving a social group through a rupture in its fabric without destroying the group itself. Consider what a death does to a small band of 30 or 40 people. Everyone knew the person. Everyone depended on them. There is a hole in the web of labor, of protection, of memory, of story. If the group falls apart in grief, the group dies. If the group does nothing, the grief still fractures it from within. The ritual is a tool for holding the group together long enough to absorb the loss and keep moving. Gathering around the body, sharing in the act of placement, marking the spot. These are not mourning behaviors, they are survival behaviors. The archaeologist Ian Tattersall has written extensively about how the symbolic mind, the human capacity to attach meaning to objects and acts, is inseparable from the first burial practices. When a Neanderthal placed a bear skull in a deliberate arrangement beside a dead companion, as researchers have found in several sites across Europe, they were not practicing religion, they were using the symbolic mind to create shared meaning, to say together, this mattered, this person was real, their going is significant. You still do this. Right now, in the 21st century, surrounded by screens and cities and every technology your species has invented, when someone you love dies, you still feel the pull toward the same instincts. You want to gather, you want to mark something, you want the group around you. You want there to be a ritual, a gesture, an act that says what cannot be said in words. The specific details have changed beyond recognition across 300,000 years. The ochre became flowers, the grave goods became framed photographs, the communal fire became a reception hall with bad sandwiches. But the underlying architecture of the behavior is identical. The impulse is the same impulse your ancestors felt in a cave in South Africa before they had language to describe it. This person was real, their going is significant, and so we gather. You still do not know what to do with your hands, but now you know why you come anyway.